We have our opening.
Hey everybody, welcome to Three Guys in a Pie podcast. I'm your host Jonathan, here with my co-host Gary. Joined once again by Aaron.
I'm an agnostic.
And back again, our guest Lou.
I forgot this is where I was supposed to say something.
So I think we wanted to talk about D&D today.
Yes, and for those of you who don't know what D&D is, it's Dungeons and Dragons, right?
So what do you want to talk about?
We're talking about D&D. We just said it.
Yeah, okay, no, duh. But like, what about D&D? Do you have anything in specific in mind? You have anything
specific in mind? I mean, no. Like, so we all play D&D. We get together usually like once a week, usually on Saturdays, and we all play. We're currently in what, 3 different games?
Yes, I think it's 3 now.
I'm in 4.
Yes, I think I'm in like 4 or 5 right now. I some of them might be canceled.
Yeah, like this is the most amount of game. I used to be in 5. And my brain slowly started to turn to mush. Because it's just like, I can't keep track of everything.
That'll happen.
Oh, yeah. But anyway, it is a fantasy role-playing game tabletop that we all seem to enjoy. And I don't know, we always have plenty to talk about for D&D when we're just hanging out, on the car ride home from Lou's place. Or, after we're done playing and we're just, chatting about our power gamer moves like me and Lou like to do.
Yeah, min-maxers.
Listen, min-maxing is a completely viable way to play the game.
I can't see how I'm min-maxing if I'm playing a blind character.
He's got a point. And besides, my character's dumb, so anything that's an intelligence-based save, probably never gonna make it, so...
That's good to know.
Secrets out.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll start with Lou. And have him tell us about some of his favorite, D&D things that he's done in your games. Because you're the guest, and we can make you do all the work.
Putting the guest on the spot.
Well, it's kind of funny, because I got the 3.5 book when I was a kid, and I didn't know what it was. I just kind of, asked my mom to buy it, and I looked at it, and I put it in my closet and never played with it for until I was an adult in college. I was still a kid. But so I had a DM in college because he convinced us to play, and he was kind of a butthole, and he wouldn't let me do any of the things I wanted to do. All of my characters, when the first time I tried to play, were just a different homebrew animal race to fuck with this guy because he was so particular about me doing something in a certain way. But I really enjoyed the game. I did not enjoy playing as a character. I enjoyed, creating the backstories and stuff, so I've mostly only DM'd since then. So yeah, it's that's primarily where I've been. I guess how I like to play the game is because I do enjoy playing a character from time to time, but most of the fun for me comes from world building, and I've stuck to one world I've kind of built. Really, mostly stole from my favorite book series because. A big Stephen King fan. From the Dark Tower series. It may or may not be the one that you guys are playing now. But yeah, so that's most of what that's basically my history with the game is played it. I still play in some campaigns. I have some friends from home they'll want to run a campaign, and they're usually too lazy as a DM to play more than 3 or 4 episodes. It's not that big of a of a commitment when I'm yeah, I'll play as a character because I'm I know this is going to be over in a week or 2.
It's at that point, why don't you just play a module? Because you can get through a module in a week or 2. I mean,
I buy all the goddamn modules, so you would think that I'd actually use them. But yeah, how about you, Gary?
So my whole thing with being introduced to Dungeons and Dragons, it was actually Nick. And it's a shame that Nick doesn't live closer, because if we had him on, this would be one hell of an episode. But I remember it was at Aaron's parents' place. Nick was like, we should play D&D. And it was that point where we were already nerds hanging out in Aaron's basement playing video games, and we were all kind of losers anyway. And I was like, man, I don't know if I want to be the kind of loser that plays D&D in his friend's parents' basement.
Okay, to be fair,
It
my
is a finished
basement isn't underground.
Yeah, to be fair, your basement is very nice. It's a very nice basement.
The relation to the surface level is important in this distinction.
Yes, we're not no underground basement dwellers.
But we did play in Nick's dad's basement, which was underground. And your parents' basement, which was also underground.
As most basements are.
Yeah. So, I mean, about 33% of the time, we played slightly above ground. But then, I finally got ground down to, okay, fine, I'll play Dungeons and Dragons, but only once. And
fine,
and
I'll try heroin, but only once.
And then after that, like, I had a great time. What I didn't like is he started us on 2nd edition AD&D. And I remember I wanted to play a monk.
That feels like a Nick move.
Yeah, because he did it like you were rolling for your stats in order.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, he also, to be fair, he inherited a lot of the 2nd edition books from his father.
Yeah.
So
and
that's what we had on hand to play with.
That makes sense.
And then I don't think we actually played that monk character or any of the characters we made for that. But that's when I started buying the 4th edition books, because that was what was out at the time. And like I was like, well, why don't we play? I found D&D books. Why don't we play this version? And I remember I had a crazy. That was when I first started DMing, because I had a crazy fucking world set up, and it made 0 sense. But I do remember we stayed up until like 6 o'clock in the morning playing at my grandparents' place. Do you guys remember that?
I don't think I was there for that.
Yes,
Unless
you were.
It was the time.
That was the
for
Labyrinth one.
For his birthday.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Why did we change places? Was it like you had to go do something?
We were too loud, and I was dog sitting for my grandmother at the time. So it was already like 1 o'clock in the morning, and we were being way too rowdy. And I was like,
playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, playing Dungeons and Dragons. And I was like, wait a minute.
Crazy kids.
Why are we playing it here? We can all just go and play at this empty house that I have access to. And that's what we did. We also bought a couple of deck builder boxes that weekend.
Oh, yeah.
I forget whose piece of shit car we drove in, whether it was yours or mine, but we went and we did that. And then I DM'd a lot ever since. Like, I know we played a lot at scouting events.
Yeah, we never got a ton of traction in high school.
We kept doing different campaigns.
We kept rotating DMs. We'd get a couple sessions in with each person generally, and that was kind of like it. Kind of like your experience a little bit,
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, we started playtesting for 5th, which is what caused that too. Because we were part of the D&D Next program where they would email you a zip file of the updated rules, and they were like, hey, make new characters and play this. And, like, see what you like. Because they weren't going to call wizards in 5th edition, they were going to call them mages. And they were going to be, like, from mage, you could branch out to, like, the wizard subclass or the sorcerer subclass. It was really interesting. It was fun to playtest 5th edition. And then I didn't get into 3.5 in the Pathfinder system until I got to college and I realized, oh, I can just pirate all of this stuff. And it's just so much easier to make homebrew shit work for 3.5 in Pathfinder because the game is so not balanced at all. So it's just like fucking throw a kitchen sink at it. It'll probably work. And then I ran the D&D club at my college. Yeah.
Got all the ladies.
The majority of our players were actually female.
That actually,
surprisingly enough.
I don't even know if that's surprising because like
it surprised me.
I feel like women in general are more likely to actually join and get involved in things.
Join and get involved in things, yes. Join and get involved in things that are notorious for being related to large, sweaty men in basements. Not so much. But yeah, the majority of my D&D games, like 70% of the games were female, and that was awesome. And there were people that like wouldn't have played D&D ever unless I came up and I was like, hey, Thursday night, come with us to dinner. We're going to go down into the basement of the calf, and we're going to play in the basement. Because we got kicked out of the library for playing in the library.
You can't play this game above ground. Get below ground.
Well, it was funny because...
Through the dungeons with E.
Well, it was funny because we would play every Thursday. So on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, I would go to the library and I would request a study room, which are fairly soundproof. And they have long tables, a bunch of chairs, and they had, what was great, a television that I could hook my computer to so I could put the maps up for them. So that was really nice. But then the one day we were really, it was a boss fight, and we were being really loud. So loud that the quiet dampening of this quiet room for this library was not working. We had people like come and knock on our door like, hey, can you guys like not? And I'm like, sorry, they're about to kill a dragon. Like, they're a little excited. So, but then they had study rooms underneath the cafeteria, and then that worked out way better because, like, there was usually no one down there when we played. And then after I got the D&D club together, I had, instead of just me DMing, it was me DMing, and then I had 2 other people who ran separate games, so we ran 3 nights a week. And I tried to be in all the games to keep track of my DMs, and I'm like, nah, fucking police yourselves. I can't do this. I need to study at some point.
So I guess my question is, was there a D&D club already there? Or
No.
Did you, like,
I started it, yeah.
Okay, nice.
I started it, and then we had one hell of a time getting our community service in, and after a while, we just said, we don't really need official club status, so we just decided to be the unofficial official D&D club for the LVC college, because it was like, yeah, we can't really get this community service in, and we don't really need funding, so we're fine. But I actually got one of my professors to start coming to games on a regular basis that I was running. And she was like, yeah, I used to play WoW in grad school, so it's kind of like that, right? And I'm like, yeah, kind of. She's like, all right, I'll be there. And she loved it. She was like, this is great. She even like crocheted her own dice bag and shit. Oh yeah, she had a great time. I think she still plays D&D to this day, like at local shops. So
I feel like that's why 5 has become so successful. Is like 3.5 came out when like it was still kind of like a true nerdy thing. Like that 2000s when like you're still on the computer in your mom's basement, like
everything happens in the basement.
I don't know. I guess the way to summarize it is like in 3.5 it wasn't as cool to be a nerd back then, and now that 5e has opened up, like 3.5 was just like this. There were so many books,
number crunching,
so much number crunching. It was everything was arcane. Even like figuring out like creating a character took like forever.
Yeah,
to just make a character.
You put a day into making your character.
Yeah, like, and now 5e, it's just like you can make a character in an hour, and
maybe less if you play a martial class.
Yeah,
yeah.
Even the module books seem to be written to be like more straightforward and a little bit easier to use. It's just like so much easier to get people into the game now, as opposed to what it used to be. And also like that kind of stuff is like popular now.
Yeah, well, especially with Critical Role popping up to be. Fuck you, Matt Mercer. Critical Role has become such a pop culture thing, and they've been running for years.
I think that got popular because of like what Lou was saying, like being nerdy is kind of in now.
Yeah, fuck you guys. Like shit, I was nerdy all my life, and now it's cool. Fuck that.
I was born in the wrong generation.
I was a loser, man. Cut to the fact that I got glasses because it made me more attractive. D&D has always been a pop culture thing, but it's really hitting a renaissance nowadays, I think. I think there was an awkward period where in 3.5 and Pathfinder where you didn't play D&D unless you ran with, that crowd who just played it. Where nowadays it's, you might not fit the mold of the average like D&D player, but like it's so new and accessible nowadays that it's just like you can play it and not know anything and still play it to a great amount of success. Like, let's face it, we don't know all the fucking rules to this game.
Yeah.
We don't know what we're doing half the time.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, the pop culture references to D&D have become more prolific. Like, for 3.5, and I mean, really the earlier editions, even if you just look at like 2E art, it's like, it really brings back like that Conan / Lovecraft style art. Like, that's where I think most of that fantasy world was basically built off of, was that like 50s into 60s, I guess like a little bit of a fantasy renaissance there. And now like the new 5e stuff, I feel like It's like Lord of the Rings style really is what's driving it, in my opinion.
Yeah, you are right. It is more kind of along the Lord of the Rings style and less Conan Barbarian and like Xena warrior princess that it used to be. But like even we see a lot more go into the pop culture of D&D with things like Stranger Things and, you know, other TV shows that like even The Big Bang Theory, as much as we used to like that show, but we don't anymore. But like The Big Bang Theory, it had them and like they would play D&D, and I think that also kind of helped kickstart kind of a like for the game, because Big Bang Theory was huge.
Yeah, it like brought nerd culture into the light for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, like it what it did was point the finger at nerds and go like, huh, isn't this weird? And then there are some people like, huh, that's weird, I want to try that.
Yeah.
And we don't have nearly the amount of counterculture to D&D nowadays as we did in the 80s and 90s. Like before, we used to have Moms Against Dungeons and Dragons and the entire satanic panic that was the 80s.
Yeah.
Because kids were getting together and playing D&D and people were whispering, oh, they're into devil worship, oh, they're sacrificing cats. Like, no! It's a bunch of guys in a basement playing a game! But nowadays, you don't have that. There's no hard line like, oh, D&D is the devil, Bobby Boucher. Like, that isn't there anymore. That's what really makes the game great. And in 5th edition, they've really made it so that you can do whatever you want. There's a lot more flexibility.
Yeah.
It's not like in 3.5 where it's like, if you want to do something off the wall, you have to figure out what book they sold it in. Go out, buy that book, come back, read it and make sure it's what you wanted, and then realize it's not. Go find the other book that's actually what you wanted, go and get that one, and then make your character.
Yeah.
Because there was a ton of that in 3.5.
Like, now you have 5e tools, which just...
No! You can't put that out there. You gotta redact that one. You can only use that if you own all the books, which we totally do.
I think actually between us, we probably do.
I think we do. No, not between us. Lou.
Between you two.
Lou. I don't have any books.
You don't have any books?
No!
So
I have pretty much like every book at this point for 5e.
Except the Eberron books, right?
No, I have the...
oh, really? You have the Eberron books?
Yeah, I have the limited edition of the Eberron, too.
Really?
Yeah.
So, that was one thing I can never really... And it's funny, too, because that's everything that DDO was based off of was the Eberron world. I can never get behind the Eberron world. I don't know why. It just felt weird.
Maybe steampunk stuff, which is fair because I don't really like steampunk as a genre. I think
steampunk, Warforged, all that bullshit.
Okay, yeah. Warforged are the most
only...
broken race to ever exist in D&D, and you cannot change my mind. They were busted in 3.5. They didn't have to eat, they didn't have to drink, they didn't get poisoned, they didn't catch diseases, like, they took a certain amount of reduced damage. Like, no. No. If you play Warforged, you're lame.
Maybe they included that.
I guess I'm lame then.
They made it not as bad in 3.5. I will say.
And like not like nobody keeps track of eating and drinking unless you're playing like a hardcore survival.
Like we are in the one, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, it does come like it in normal games. I don't feel like it comes up that much because it's like you're never really gone long enough for it to be like, oh hey, you guys haven't eaten in like 4 weeks. Yeah, I'll give you a level of exhaustion. Like, it's more like, oh, hey, you went to the dungeon, you were gone for, like, 2 days, and, like, between your short and your long rests, you had rations, so, like, yeah, you're fed. It's not like in the hardcore game we're running, where it's like, alright, it's the beginning of the day, how many water rations do you have? Oh, it's getting kinda low!
What you're talking about is a strength of 5e, though, as compared to 3.5, where with 5e, like, I've played with, like, 4 different, like, completely different groups of people now, and all of them play a different way. So, like, you have games where people keep track of eating, some where people don't keep track of eating. You have some that are more narrative built, and some that are more based on combat. You have some where, like, you know, you need to sit there and really describe out the rooms to somebody. They like, you know, art, they like music attached to it, and then there's some where it's just, like, they're just there for the mechanics of the game. Like, 5e is just so much more accessible than like 3.5 was in that aspect.
And that's my type of D&D style right there. Is I'm not a fan of combat, whether as a player or a DM. It's just not, for me, it's not fun. It takes forever, and part of it's coming from when I DM'd at college, because the longest time, the most amount of people I had in a game at one point for the D&D club was 12 people in a game. I forcefully split that party. I said, oh no, the floor opens up and half of you fall down a hole. Because I couldn't keep track of 12 people in combat plus monsters.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, this group will fight, this group will go and... Because I did it so that the people who really liked the combat, those are the ones that ended up fighting a lot, and then the ones who were like, I throw a rock at it, those were the ones that I let them explore, like, a little bit more, because, like, I had friends, my buddy Justin, he only ever showed up to D&D when I reminded him, and he only did it because I was his friend. Because he had other things, he had way more things that he would rather do.
He was a cool kid.
Well, no, he was still a loser, but he liked to play video games instead of come and be social at D&D. So, he would show up, he would be on his phone most of the time, and he would only roll the die when I told him to. That was his effort for the game. I really just had him there because I wanted him to get out and see sunlight for a little bit of time before he went into the basement. So, he was only there for combat because I gave him a gun. And I was like, here, shoot monsters. He's like, you got it, boss. But I really liked, coming up, what I did for my games is, instead of making maps, I made PowerPoint slideshows. Every time that they would enter a new room, I would put the slide up, and that would be what the room looked like.
That's awesome. I never even thought about that.
Yeah, and that's what made it great, because I had the TVs that I could just plug right into. So that was what was great.
The more he talks about this, the more left out I feel, because it's like he never did any of this for us.
Well, yeah, listen, when I was DMing for you guys, I was learning. By the time I got to college, I was like, okay, what did I do before that I didn't like? How can I fix it?
You're DMing for us right now, Gary.
I
had a PowerPoint slideshow.
Okay, do you know how burnt out I am for DMing? I
want a PowerPoint.
Okay, I'll make a fucking PowerPoint.
You guys, OneNote, that's where it's at.
But, like, yeah, I ran a game every Thursday for 3 out of the 4 years I was in college. Every Thursday. Because we even carried it through on holidays by playing on Discord. So, we were consistent, and my group went through some pretty crazy shit. Because I realized they weren't a group that was all for one long, overarching story.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They liked short, maybe 1 or 2 session, like, basically one-shots.
Yeah.
So what I did was, I had them start in a town, and they went, and the people that they were helping was this corporation, and they were like, hey, we need you to go places and get artifacts. So, we're going to send you to these different places, and when you bring them back, we'll pay you. Don't worry, we have a town, or we have a house that you can stay in, and it's part of the deal.
We're laughing because that sounds oddly familiar to the campaign I'm currently running.
Wait a minute.
I did it first, so, and they were like, okay. So they had this house that was also a storefront, and they had a great time because I was like, what do you want to name your store? Because the loot that you bring back, it's great and all, but you're not going to be able to use it all, so might as well sell it in a storefront. And they were like, we got a name. Swords, Weapons, and Magical Pieces Associates. Which shortens to Swamp Ass. So they had a wooden sign that said Swamp Ass outside their store.
Oh my god.
And they had a blast. And the way I would run it is, every once in a while, they would hear a knock on their closet door in the house, and it would open up, and one of their associates would walk through a portal and be like, okay, here's where you're going, here's what you need, go through the door. And they would walk through the door, and they would be in another plane of existence.
Mm-hmm.
And every time they would go, they would find their artifact, and they would come back. What they don't know is that the existence of the planes were tied to these artifacts they were bringing back. So every time they brought an artifact back, they were destroying a plane.
Oh.
And that really came to a head once they figured it out. And they were like, oh shit, we're just destroying different planes of existence. We're not even asking what these artifacts do. And then, like, the whole conclusion
accidental genocide.
Yeah, exactly. And then it all came to a head the last scenario before we let out for summer. They actually went to, like, the corporation and, like, blew the fucking building up, fucking Irish Republican Army style. But yeah, I found that they really enjoyed that because I could put them in different places every 2 or 3 weeks or so.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, it always felt fresh for them. So, like, I sent them to... I stole a lot from the Magic universe. Like, I would send them to Amonkhet.
Okay.
I sent them to... I think I sent them to Eberron.
That's a good segue, actually, because I wanted to ask this question at some point, was, like, what do you... Because I know you DM a lot, and Jonathan is DMing...
Terrible DM.
Oh, you're good.
I think you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, you're doing fine.
I don't know, Aaron, if you DM'd at all.
Like once in
a
my
couple
life, I
times.
don't remember it a whole lot.
But
We
like
did it a couple times.
Even I get like when you think of D&D, when you're like doing any writing or even for like the characters you guys make, like what kind of stuff do you? What like art, music, books? Movies
I guess
do you
we should
guys
make it.
draw on?
I guess we should also make it clear for people who have no idea what Dungeons and Dragons is. The DM is the dungeon master who runs the game.
Yeah.
A complete oversight on our part.
I don't think they've made it this far and didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I mean...
Don't worry, fellas. We'll just clip this into the opener.
You start. You haven't been talking a lot. You go first.
I get, like, I pull some of what I get from, like, the books, like, book series I read. I think that'd be the biggest thing. In the current campaign, I had an idea because I got into a particular topic. I'm like, I'm gonna use this. And I just want to, like, adapt all that stuff because there's, like, already a whole setup there, so I just adapted it to fit into the campaign.
Yeah. Which,
like,
by the way, there is some contention about that with people who write for, for games. Is you can totally steal from books and movies and stuff. Like, it's not... You're not...
Oh, yeah. Do
I
it.
think that's the best play. Yeah, like, obviously, the people who are getting paid to write these things can't do it.
I heard
but they do, though. I mean, everything from Strahd, I mean, that is basically your
Dracula.
Yeah.
Well, Chris Perkins, who was the DM for the Acquisitions Incorporated podcast for 11 years, and works for Wizards of the Coast in developing adventures, he had said, a good DM creates, a great DM steals.
Yeah.
Like, he said that.
There's, like at this point, there's very few original ideas, even. So
Yeah.
I think it's hard to even come up with an original idea, because, like, someone's going to have had it before you, or you're, like, even subconsciously, you're building off of someone else's ideas,
I don't know
even
about
if you don't
Gelbert.
realize.
Yeah, Gelbert, no, we can say
I don't know,
Gelbert
Gelbert's
from
Osmosis
Flubber.
Jones. Or Flubber, like,
I disagree with the no longer really being like any original ideas, but I do think that it's extremely difficult to just come up with an original idea. I think you get original ideas are basically now derivatives from like stuff you're stealing from.
Putting
Yeah,
an
that's what I mean.
spin on it.
like, yeah, you're changing, because even subconsciously, like, there's so much in
It's impossible
existence with what humans have made that it's hard to not use that as basis, even not realizing you're using it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, my whole thing, like, particularly the game I'm having you guys in right now, it's the whole setup for the religion is, I'll be honest, it's just the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what it is, but I'm changing it to be something different. But I'm using the setup of the Catholic Church because that's documented, and I can go like, all right, so what does the hierarchy look like here, you know?
That must be why my character loves them so much.
Yeah, you missed out on the religion episode.
Yeah, you guys really don't like Roman Catholics, huh? Felt a little persecuted.
It's not the individuals,
It's the conglomerate.
Okay, well.
It's like we don't dislike people who work for Amazon. We just don't like Jeff Bezos.
But when I'm coming up with a world, I will steal Mostly from music, actually.
I do a lot of stealing from music too. I don't know the campaign.
See, that's really interesting. Like, I don't even see how do you do, like, what is the process there?
So, I mean, I'm kind of surprised you guys didn't pick up on it, but for a while in the Discord, when I would do a session with you guys, I would put music in, and that music was essentially the story for the episode.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I don't
Ballroom
even think
Blitz. That was a great...
Okay, yeah, that one was obvious, but like...
Wait, which one?
Ballroom Blitz.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Wait,
that one was...
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was pretty obvious, but like, that's also just a banger fighting song.
But what I do for the werewolf episode, I always have a werewolf session in every game, werewolf mystery session, because
it's
love,
a classic.
Yeah,
We kind of burned that to the ground, though, didn't we?
I think you guys did.
We did.
We got halfway through it and then just hit the nuclear option.
And then just let someone who might have been evil take away a gigantic necrotic stone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I sit down,
Evil!
Yeah, evil.
No.
That character was a douche, and you know it.
No, it wasn't. You guys just never got the opportunity to get to know him.
Because he was standoffish and a douche. Anyway.
I think it's ironic that the character he hated the most, he ended up leaving the
group with. I would not mind bringing Sviximir back, but only if he's level 6 and useful.
you guys have no idea what I plan on for those characters.
Yeah, so I listen to a lot of fantasy power metal. I listen to metal music that has a story, and you can very clearly hear the story in the lyrics. And it's like, it's so easy to like look at this and go, oh my god, this is awesome. And just adapt it to a game.
Yeah.
Like one band I listen to is called Glory Hammer, and they have 3 albums out. One of them is called Glory Hammer, and it's about the first
the hammer is my penis.
No. So it's about an ancient wizard Zargathrax leading a legion of undead unicorns on the county of Dundee in Scotland, and Angus McFife has to go collect the Amulet of Justice, the Glory Hammer, and something else. I can't remember the last thing. These 3 magic items to go and beat the shit out of Zargathrax. So he ends up throwing Zargathrax into a liquid lake of ice and freezes him forever.
Liquid lake of ice.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Basically liquid nitrogen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're a nerd's nerd. You know that?
But hold on, it gets better. The second album is called 1992 Chaos Wizards. So 1,000 years goes by. The Chaos Wizards have survived as a cult for like 1,000 years and have revived Zargathrax in 1992, which is supposed to be like a mythical, like so far ahead in the future kind of deal. And Angus McFife the 13th now has to battle fucking Zargathrax again, and somehow in doing so opens a portal through space and time. They shoot to another dimension where Zargathrax is a god. It is such...
It's like some Arkham
the
Horror
albums,
shit
the
there.
albums are a trip. Glory Hammer is a great band. Please, everyone here and listening, just if you're listening on Spotify, all their albums are there. Just fucking listen to it. It is a fucking power trip.
Is this like music, like the Iliad is music? Where it's like,
No, dude. Like after we're done recording, I'll take you upstairs and I will play the Unicorn Invasion of Dundee, and it is. It is awesome.
We can't ever end this episode now.
Yeah,
we're stuck here forever.
Yeah. Never stop recording.
It's a good song. You would like it. I know you would like it.
I probably would, because I like all kinds of music, personally, and I implement, like, all kinds of things. I forget the name of the Childish Gambino song that I kind of based this campaign around, but, like, my inspirations for the campaign you guys are running now are, like, Stephen King's It, their Stephen King's Dark Tower series. Robert E. Howard had this really cool short story about, I think it's the Ivory Tower. It was a Conan story, Conan the Barbarian story. A ton of Lovecraft. Blue Oyster Cult song, Seasons Don't Fear the Reaper. That's a big one for this. Yeah, so I draw...
Yeah, you can really see that in all the games, that in every session, too. Don't fear the Reaper. I also like just pulling on points of history to make my world.
I do that too.
Like, the one thing I really want to play, I don't want to DM it. I want to play in it. But I know if I play in it, it's not going to be the way I want it to, so I have to DM it.
Yeah.
Is, like, Arthurian Legend. That screenshot of time.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I want to play.
That's what I always imagine D&D is.
But it never is, though. Like, think about it. What games have we played where it is just Arthurian Legend?
You gotta get more specific than saying those two words over and over again.
Like,
yeah, I guess. Maybe you're looking for something in particular that...
Like, you know...
You're talking about medieval style, though.
Yeah, medieval style, but along the lines of the legend of King Arthur. You know, like the finding of a grail, the finding, like the, you know, the acquisition of Excalibur, you know, things like that, you know. The death of King Arthur, where a bunch of salty wenches just put him on a barge and sailed him off across the sea, kind of deal.
I purposely, when I'm doing campaigns, avoid stuff like that.
Really?
Like, I will pull stuff from history and from, like, pop culture and stuff, but, like, for example, another thing I pulled for the campaign you guys are running is the entire story of the Mothman event, as well as Indrid Cold. So
this is gonna be a fucking trip.
So that was like, what, 1960s, 1970s kind of little history when the Silver Bridge fell? Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of elements to that I threw in when I was making this campaign. I always imagine that, like, what you're talking about is really just, like, the base level that people go to, because when you're doing D&D, it's almost always, like, sword and shield, or, like, a magic user with, like, a staff, just that, you know.
Yeah, the tropey stuff.
Yeah, like, that's just, like, the contextual level of what you're running, whereas, like, I think what you're talking about are, like, the key points to
I'm talking about embracing the tropes.
Okay.
Like, you take the classic, I am a knight in shining armor, have at ye, and, like, you just... Like, you focus in on it and you make it interesting while maintaining what it is at its core. Not like, okay, yes, this is, quote, interesting, but I'm going to make it more so by changing it.
I think what you're talking about is why I absolutely hate players who play bards. Like, to the point where, like, I get along with almost everybody, and I feel like I almost can't get along with people who only play bards.
I'm hurt. I love bards.
Because everybody who plays a bard the exact same way.
Horny bard?
Yeah. They play this, like, flirty, you know, sing-songy type character who's always wishy-washy and goes with the wind and very fanciful, but, like, I think that most of the fun in D&D is, like, playing a character in just a very unique way every single time.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, how I make characters is very different, because, like, I always try to find just, like, funny meme thing and try to build it in D&D.
Yeah. My friends do that all the time. I have a friend who he keeps trying to make Captain America a character in one of my games. I'm like, stop doing that. Stop it. I know what you're doing.
How would you make that work?
Warlock, pack weapon, shield.
Oh, okay.
And you just throw it and return it.
Alright.
But, like, the character I'm running for Jonathan's campaign right now, I was looking through what I would like to do, and I love scions in games I play, because I like that whole psychic thing. That's, like, where some people are attracted to, like, playing a horny bard. I'm attracted to playing the scion-type character.
But that's because they're broken.
It's not because they're broken. It's because you can do fun things that... It makes the DM think and play differently.
Like being blind.
Yes. So I was looking into the Sci-Fighter, and I was already playing one for another campaign, so I was like, how can I do things differently? And I saw the blind fighting trait on Fighter, and I was like, wow, that would be kind of cool to play as just, like, a blind character. How would I even make that work? And now I'm playing him. And I don't think I'm playing him to much success right now. It's pretty difficult, and I
don't know.
You're good in combat.
Yeah, I mean, like, the important part of you being good in combat, that's established.
Yeah.
So, like, and this is the first time I've ever actually played a martial character. Not even gonna lie. Charlie was my first martial character I've ever made. Everything else has always been a spellcaster.
Mm-hmm. Really?
Yeah. 'Cause I hated combat.
Mhm.
So I always wanted to be the spellcaster that's like, alright, this is going slow. Fireball. I'm done with this. Can we move on to the more interesting role-playing stuff now? I was always the one that resorted to the nuclear
No, this
option.
wasn't your first Marshall, because the one you played in his campaign, your first one, what the hell was it?
Paladin
Vixmere was a Marshall.
Okay,
character.
True Marshall.
True Marshall, because a rogue I don't see as a martial
Rogue
character.
is a martial class.
Yeah, rogue is a martial class, but I think of them more as a specialist with their utility.
You mean like they fall into like skill monkey
Yeah.
style?
So I would say like rogue, ranger, bard, and artificer kind of fall into the specialist roles where they can do these like. They can do combat stuff, but they are either like skill monkeys or they have utility outside of combat that makes them really useful.
Yeah.
That's where the character really shines.
Yeah.
Because, like, a rogue in combat, if you can't get off your sneak attacks, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Whereas, like, outside of combat, okay, you can pick locks, you can find traps, you can get into places that other people normally can't. You can pickpocket people, you can do all these other things. And that's why I like the specialist classes, because I love bards.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever actually played a horny bard. To come to think of it,
You just do it
fuck
in real
you.
life.
IRL, I'm just a horny bard that can't play an instrument.
You're getting there on the accordion, I hope.
Bro, I haven't picked up my accordion in months. It's still at my grandmother's. I don't have a place to practice. Every time I get it out at home, as soon as I play a note, they're like, put it away!
As they should. So how about you guys? What kind of like books, movies? songs do
Lately,
you guys
I've been
use?
in a phase where I'm literally ripping characters out of books. I've been reading a lot of the Stormlight Archive, Mistborn, trilogy,
cool.
like fantasy kind of books.
Yeah, because I keep hearing recommendations for those.
Lord of the Rings. Gary's trying to get me into what is it, the King Killer Chronicles?
Oh yeah, the King Killer
I
Chronicles
have
from
that.
Patrick
I haven't started
Rothfuss.
that yet. So books like that. A lot of times, certain characters are just really cool. Brandon Sanderson is the author of the Stormlight Archive and some of the other books I mentioned. He does a lot of ensemble castings, or he has a lot of minor characters that actually have a lot of depth to them and stuff. So
Yeah.
I might rip one of those, and then it's not or something like that. It's
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a lot of fun.
I mean, I do it all the time for my characters, where I'll just rip a character from something I'm reading or I'm hearing from as a minor character. I would say my only true, completely original character that has had no influence except for me, just me, has been Jig. Which I mean, it's pretty obvious.
I
Yes,
love
it
Jig.
is.
Yeah, Jig is good.
Yeah.
One of my favorite characters I played, which was just a direct ripoff from Darkest Dungeon, was my character Mathiox. Because he's just the flagellant from Darkest Dungeon. That's all he is. But, it's so much fun to play, because I played him in one campaign while I was at college. And he was kind of... I didn't go for the, I like to hurt myself. Blood gives the god powers. I didn't go for the super edgelordy thing. I went for the, you guys are dumb. You guys need someone to protect you. I will be the one to protect you. Kind of dad character for the group.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of hard ass, father figure. And that's how I played him as in college. And then I brought him back for the campaign I play in on Thursdays, or Wednesdays rather. He died, and then he was resurrected. And now he's here, and he has no idea why. But he came back as, a 60-year-old man. So he's just yes, I'll be the grandfather for the group, because all of you are dumb. So it's fun to, take what you would think of to be, a very edgelordy character.
Yeah.
And just be no, I'm the dad. These are my children, and they're all very stupid.
But beyond just taking tropes and spinning them to something a little more unique, that's one of the reasons. I don't roleplay very well, so I'm not bad at this, or I'm not really good at this. But the reason I haven't ever tried to multiclass is because I haven't ever felt the need to. I could play the same class 4 or 5 times and probably create totally different characters with different aspects or personalities. You can kind of avoid tropes a lot if you just so I haven't really felt the need to multiclass and spice things up.
Multiclassing fills a niche for when you're trying to
do something specific with your character. So, like, Charlie, the pit fighter, he's a bare-knuckle brawler, but there's really no good one class for a bare-knuckle brawler. Sure, you can use fighter.
Monk is like the go-to for...
Yeah, okay. I'm getting there. You can do fighter, you can do barbarian, or you can do monk, but, like, monk is about using technique and being, you know, kind of like graceful, and you learned it, and you're good at, like, being disciplined.
Only if you play it that way. Like, you don't...
But that's like the stereotype of the monk. And there's not... I'm also going to be honest, monk is kind of a weak class.
Sure.
Up until you get to later levels.
I mean, I get what you're saying with multiclassing, and I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I think a better avenue that is often unexplored for kind of creating a character the way you want it to is just having your DM be flexible enough to make a character unique in the way that you see it. So, like, I understand that if I'm playing fighter and I wanted to go unarmed, I'd pretty much have one avenue unless I want to multi-class to try and change things up. But if I was to explain something to my DM or even just play my character in a certain way, I would hope that it would work better if you, like, know the person and they're actually a good DM. That they would, like, maybe bend the rules to,
Am I being added right now?
No.
No.
Really seen that.
No, not at all. We are not adding you at all.
They're looking right at him.
You're across the table from me. It's just the easiest. Right, you can't tell right now, but I'm looking everywhere but Jonathan. I'm not singling you out. I promise. But, like, yeah, the DM ideally would make things work. It's like that's why one of the ways that I play as a DM is that I'm constantly changing people's characters in like positive and negative ways to how the character plays or like what they do. Because if you look at D&D's 5e system right now, like I said before, it's super accessible and easy to use. But the amount of rules in there are like that allow character flexibility are just like how do I say it? It's easy to make a character kind of the way, into like a general archetype of what you want to do, but you really need to like bend the rules if you want to make a character to be like exactly how you envision it. And I think D&D was kind of made with that in mind because like you shouldn't just be like, oh, it's against the rules. I can't make it that way. Like that's the point of playing the character that way is to, like, you know, flesh a character out to be exactly how you want it to be.
I try to think of the rules as more of, like, a guide, too.
Yes.
I feel like a lot of people really, like, strictly go by the rules. It's like...
The code aren't so much rules. They're more like guidelines.
Like, you can... If you want to do a campaign where you just completely ignore a set of rules, as long as all your players are okay with that, I don't see a problem with doing it that way.
Like encumbrance.
Yeah.
Then everybody usually just like, let's ignore
let's
that.
Put you in a box. You're right. It is just better to work it out with your DM, but I run into the point where what I'm doing to ask because like, I'm always worried about being a burden to the DM because the DM already has to do a lot of work.
Yeah.
So I'd rather be able to multi-class and have like the rules as written flesh my character out for what I want to do.
Yeah.
That way it's less hoops for the DM to jump through and it's more just micromanagement on my end.
Yeah.
Because that's why Charlie works, particularly with Tasha's coming out, what is it, almost a year ago now?
Yeah. It's been out for a while.
Yeah. So when Tasha's came out and put the unarmed fighting in for fighters, that made it perfect because it came out right at the time that I wanted to make this. Mm-hmm. And I was like, cool, because that works, because the only other option I really had was, you know, monk. And it just made going into fighter way better than starting as a monk and slowly ramping up over time. Plus it just made more flavor sense because it's like, yeah, big dumb guy hits thing hard. Ooga booga. Like, like that's what I wanted for the character. Monk just didn't really fit that bill. Now I am going to multiclass into Monk because Drunken Master is still a thing. It's not as good as it used to be, but it's still there.
Yeah.
I'm really sad with Drunken... This is a small aside from me to talk to Lou here quick. But I'm really sad that they took away the drunk part of the Drunken Master.
Yeah.
Because it used to be... When you would drink alcohol, you would get temporary key points that you could use while intoxicated. And it also gave you access to different moves as a drunken monk
Yeah.
that you could only use drunk key for.
Yeah.
And now that's gone. I'm like, oh, I'm kind of sad.
That seems
But
to fit you.
But I guess they didn't want kids to encourage alcoholism in kids, so like I guess it's okay to take it.
My opinion as to why they took that out was that it looks like I'm gonna get a little spicy here with race, but with 5e, it looks like they're trying to kind of make the game more culturally. I don't know the word.
Acceptable.
Politically
No, I mean, sure,
correct.
I agree. That's
Yeah,
politically
probably
correct
that.
is probably I believe they are trying to do that as well, but homogenous, culturally homogenous. Where
Okay.
Tone
They're-
down stereotypes.
I guess so. I think they're trying to make their own culture from their own races and have people accept it. Whereas in 3.5, it really did. There were a lot of books that like really kind of leaned on our
Real
already
world.
existing
Yeah.
cultures, and that was kind of cool. And I understand why they're doing it with 5e to make it more accessible, and also kind of as a brand to kind of like, make your own thing. I'm not against it, but there were some kind of cool aspects with 3.5 where, there are characters you can make that are like, you can find a type of, like maybe like a type of warrior in history and make that type of warrior.
I mean, the samurai and the ninja, they literally put out books for 3.5 to make those characters. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about Dungeons and Dragons before I even started playing was when Nick had that second edition mythology.
Oh, yeah.
Like the gods and deities
And-
book or whatever it was
And
called.
he had the one that they printed before Chaosium slapped him with the cease and desist because it had Cthulhu and their mythos in it.
Yeah, so it was cool because it had like your regular religions and then all these like pagan religions from history and then like the Cthulhu mythos pantheons and like all this really cool stuff about it. And it was like, that's what drew me into D&D.
Yeah, that was, I remember that was like the first thing that he showed us.
Yeah.
And like that was cool.
Like, I guess what I'm getting at is like for 5e right now, if I wanted to make like an African shield warrior, I could probably do it fairly easily, but I don't think I could make it as close to what I envision in my mind as if I was to do it in 3.5. I couldn't separate it from every other random fighter class that has a shield and a spear as much in 5e as I could in 3.5.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think 3.5 was very rules heavy, but it was very diverse in the rules as written types of things that you can do with your character. Where in 5th edition, it's you can make your character however you want, but the rules as written isn't going to always match up perfectly with your idea, so you have to work with your DM. And I think that is a better way to go, because then you have a better dynamic with your DM with like, hey, the rules say this, I want to do this, what do I need to do to make that happen? Because it brings you closer with your DM, because I can't tell you how many games where I've run a game and I only know my player's character name and what their character does. I know nothing about the person. They just showed up at my table and started playing, and like, I don't even know what that dude majors in. He's just here. He could be a hobo off the street that decided that he wanted to come to D&D Club today. And so, in 5th edition, I'm forced to talk to Lou and Jonathan to play my games, and so I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, and like, I didn't play a whole lot of 3.5 because that time you were talking about that we played in Aaron's basement, that was the first time I had ever played D&D.
And I think that was the D&D Next. I think that's one.
I don't even know if I made a character. I think one of you guys made a character for me. Because like I knew nothing about D&D.
I can't remember.
And like that was the first experience I had, so I don't really know 3.5.
Wait, your
very
first
much.
experience was when I ran that labyrinth for Aaron?
Yeah, that was the first time I actually played D&D.
Oh my god. Because that was like a dick dungeon. The more I think about it.
Yeah,
Because-
but like I had no idea how to play, so like I don't have a lot of experience in 3.5. So like to me, 5 just feels like
D&D.
they give you but like it's like this is a rough idea of how you can set things up, this is like, if you want structure, you can go to this, but like I see Dungeons and Dragons as like a shortcut so that you don't have to do everything yourself.
Yeah.
It's like a toolbox that you can draw from, and you can make the rest of the world yourself.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's why, like, people who play tabletop RPGs don't typically play Dungeons and Dragons for very long. It's like, this is like the entrance into what is a gigantic store of different systems and different, like, themes and stuff that people go into. The system right now is, like, very easy to use, so it can be applied to anything.
Yeah,
And
like, I
that's-
feel like you could run pretty much any kind of theme with Dungeons and Dragons.
And that's
as
what
a
the
rough
meme
framework.
is. And that's what the meme is on the D&D subreddits, because there's constantly people coming in like, hey, how can I make 5th edition work for my insert other genre here, whether it's cyberpunk, whether it's steampunk, whether it's sci-fi horror, whether it's, you know, this, that, or the other thing, the fucking spaghetti western, 1980s Miami Vice style, you know, shoot 'em up, whatever. The meme is that, hey, you guys don't have to make D&D 5th edition for every genre that exists. There are games out there that exist for your genre. World War II army fighting role-playing game. GURPS. Go play it. Sci-fi. You got Spelljammers and other shit. Go play it. Star Wars. They have their own system. Go and play it.
I played it, by the way. It is fun.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Good. It looked kind of hard because was it the one
I've
with the
played-
special dice?
I've played both.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, how was the one with the special dice?
A little confusing, and the special dice kind of were frustrating at times because it's like there's like a half success, full success, if I'm remembering correctly.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was a lot of, like, the options in the book and stuff were a lot of fun. They revamped the system since, I think, and I played that new system like not nearly enough to remember anything about it, but I do remember having fun with both of them. Because I'm not like a super hardcore Star Wars fan, but I do know.
No, but the tabletop always looked super fun.
Yeah.
Because it did have a lot of options. But yeah, so the meme is like, people want to take D&D 5th edition and apply it to everything else, when it's like, listen, go and play the other systems if you want to play in a different genre, because a lot of these systems have been out for 20, 30 years.
Yeah, but like,
And they've been tuned. The bugs have been worked out. The bugs have been fleshed out. You can play it. It's a full system.
see, to me, like, the beauty of doing that with 5e, though, is like you already know the base rules. You just have to tweak things slightly to fit your theme. Like, there's nothing that prohibits you from using
Right. And
5e for other things.
Right, and if you have a time, go ahead and do that. But what they're mainly saying is you're gonna spend a lot of time working a system to fit what you need it to, and banging your head against the wall when it doesn't fit exactly quite right.
Well, but my argument is you shouldn't have to be changing anything. Like, I think you could just use 5e as is and just change the setting.
I can kind of agree with Jonathan to a degree. Like, I think if you have certain things in mind with certain series or even if it's like an original story you want to make, it might be hard to translate necessarily one for one. But I mean, it's not too difficult to tweak. I feel like, you know,
Yeah,
you can overlay what is essentially just the D20 system to almost anything, and then add other mechanisms to it. And if it unbalances your game, I mean, the balance in, you guys can probably tell, the balance in my games is a little wonky, but
It's just hard to balance 5e, like, from a DM perspective.
Yeah.
Because, like,
I feel like
I think,
they're weird power spikes.
again, just coming from the person that's DM basically not at all, but like I feel like as you gain experience with that group or campaign, you can make a lot of off the cuff changes and adjustments, kind of just like on a whim, and it'll work out kind of well. Like
people who want to play it as a hard, like, this is a game, these are the rules. You might not necessarily be able to do that. But once the screen is up, I mean, you guys don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
I mean, there are times
That's
where
the beauty of the screen.
where I'm like, let me dial this up or back because I don't know exactly how this is going to play out. Because when I'm designing an encounter, like, at least the way I DM is that my goal isn't necessarily to kill all of the characters. It's to make a challenging game with a narrative that allows people to make interesting and fun characters to play through it.
So like if the campaign is too easy, I don't really give a shit. I mean, it's if it's too easy where it's not fun for you guys, then I'll like crank up the difficulty. But if it's too easy and you guys think it's fine and you're having fun, like who cares?
Yeah. That's my line of thinking too, because I've like taught people how to play D&D, like so many people, almost everyone who came into D&D Club has never played before.
Yeah.
So I have showed this to like at least 30 people through the club, and like my line of thinking when I was a DM was, I don't really care. I'm not going to actively try and kill your characters, because this isn't my story. This is your guys' story. I lay the groundwork, you tell it from here.
Yeah.
And like I don't want you guys to feel like, constantly near death. Now for you guys it's fucking different.
Yeah.
I will actively try to kill all of you here.
But that's the flip side of the coin, which is also true, in that if you want to play a campaign as a group where it is more difficult and you want to focus more on the mechanics or on the overlooked rules that aren't usually used, like a survival campaign,
or even get to play that game where it's DM versus PCs, like that's a game I've never played.
It's almost never fun though, because the power balance is so far in the DM's favor.
Yeah, because you can always be like, and Terror-ask.
Yeah,
I kind of think, I think I talked about this on the video games episode, which was like, if something becomes a level of difficulty where I'm figuring out what works and what doesn't work, and when it works, it becomes like a puzzle, in which case, if I wanted to do that, I'll just play a puzzle.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to do that. That doesn't seem like a lot of fun to me. Because the resource is there if you're playing, from a mechanic standpoint, like, if I want to figure out how to break the game and beat the hardest things you can throw at me, for D&D and the Roll20 system, that's not very difficult.
Yeah.
I can.
There's so many different avenues you can go down.
For me as a player, I'm always looking for the most dramatic stuff from, like, a narrative standpoint. Like, dramatic, intense, chaotic situations are fun.
Yeah.
And then I like having a bunch of different ways to tackle the same problem. Whether you as a DM are putting those in front of me, being like, look, here are 3 obvious routes you could take. Or if I'm just like being spontaneous and come up with something.
I'm going to throw the halfling.
I like that kind of stuff, and not kind of worrying about like, oh, is this a good, like in terms of like meta, is this going to be the best way to proceed, or is this going to be like just a fun, cool way to do things?
And that's why I'm worried with the survival campaign, because like I can already see how tedious the water and rations thing is.
That's what I like, because like to
you
me,
like
this
that,
is like
I'm getting worried.
City builder.
So like, and that's what is gonna worry me, because like I don't want you guys to be like, wait a minute, I'm just fucking playing a city builder. I can do this on my computer and like leave the table. That's what I'm worried about.
See, that's what I always like want in D&D, is like
really?
To be able to actually.
Oh, so you want to be that high level character that like is like level 12, gets a bunch of money, and like I'm gonna build my own fortress and like call myself the Baron.
Dude, every time I
like
get
as a group, like create, because like. Honestly, as you guys will see in my campaign, I will be giving you guys that option.
Dude, it's become such a meme in the games I'm a part of. Every time we get a house and we have a keep, we never get a chance to fucking go back to it. I'm so mad.
I put that in there for my campaign, and like it is still an option for you guys.
The problem is right now we kind of we're on this went tits up because we made a big mistake.
Yeah, shit went ass over tea kettle real fucking fast.
I mean, it's not like that option is closed off either. You're just like right now not at the point where where your house is.
Do I start my own order of knights, or do I go and save the world?
Especially
not
because
mutually exclusive. But if you look back in D&D, like first edition had it, and second edition, that is
hirelings,
in like as designed, like fight. Whereas like I think the wizards and stuff would get these really powerful world-changing spells.
Yeah,
fighters were designed as you approach level 20 to just have followers and like that's how like you became like a leader of an army, and it was built into how you level up.
Mhm.
Like it was always designed to be that way for the game. So it's like it's not like it's not how it's meant to be played.
Yeah, it's never. I never get that, and that's what's fun. Is like we get to. I'm like, ooh, yes.
No, yeah, no. It's fun
All
and
right,
exciting,
plus
and I
one
like it.
water.
Get the Galapagos board out. Let's go.
You just need a little bit of balance here and there.
Yeah,
Like,
I
because
want to.
right now, from my perspective on that campaign, we're basically like babysitting every single NPC in the campaign.
Yeah,
And I'm hoping to get them to the point where they can kind of fend for themselves long enough for us to go off for like 3 weeks on like cool expeditions and do stuff.
yeah, and I think that's going to come to a head quicker than you expect.
Well, it sounds like that's about to be what happened, because like right now we're getting ready to go off and do stuff.
Right, all the NPCs are going to die. We're just
Right,
going to go
and
off and
well,
do
okay, and not to like tell you guys how to play in the campaign, but I thought I was kind of making it very obvious that they made camp in a very shitty like area.
Oh no, that was not at all obvious to me.
It's they're fucking surrounded by swamp.
No, I know. My goal is to relocate them maybe to like the base of a mountain. That would be awesome because like mountains are cool.
Which I have to go and get the shitty quick rendition of the map that I made, because I still haven't ported that to an actual map yet, because map making is my least favorite part of D&D ever.
Yeah, we are running a bit long on time though here.
Oh
for
yeah,
this
I
one,
didn't even realize what time.
Yeah,
how long are
so we're at long.
we?
So
We're at long.
So I think it would be cool. I think it might be cool, like, because you would wanted to try out the Altered Carbon. I think if we dipped into that, we could even get into that a little bit.
Do
when
we
want
want
to
to bring the stuff down and make character sheets?
No, I don't think that'll be interesting for anybody except us. But we could, after we've played a little while, we could probably revisit this topic and maybe talk about, because we brought up another system. Maybe try another system, because I've only ever played Dungeons and Dragons.
Same here.
So.
I'm actually really excited to try any other system.
So I think that would be a good thing.
yeah.
Is we'll call it quits for here today. We'll try out another system. We can have another episode on that if Lou ever wants to tolerate being on the show with us again.
Bye forever.
We should just have you on as a regular.
Stop talking.
We need a blooper reel.